Today, I'd like to share with you some amazing interview that I found concerning internal alchemy for women, white Tigress Tantra, or Jade goddess practice by absorbing the dragon's breath. The female energy is the yin or the chi, and the male energy is the fire or the dragon's breath, and that is the seal of Solomon. The goal is to create higher states of consciousness. I found this information on Robert Sphere's YouTube, and it is an interview with Jade and Alan Steinfeld. The full interview is on his channel called New Reality.
For the evolving spiritual potential that we're coming into on this planet. And that includes many aspects of ourselves. Our potential for higher consciousness, our potential to tap into our own body's physiological capacity. And that includes our sexual capacity. Tonight's guest is talking about the evolution and capabilities of who we are as sexual beings. She's been trained with Mata Chia. She's developing her own school of Jade goddess work. Her name is Saida. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Alan.
I think what's so important about your work is to bring an awareness to, first of all, the complexity of female sexuality, and also how sexuality is used as a spiritual evolutionary tool. Right? I mean,
Absolutely.
Are those the kind of two aspects of your work, kind of practical and theoretical side?
There's the physical component, and then there's that definite spiritual side to the practice.
Well, let's talk about the spiritual aspect. So many people in our culture have sort of been disconnected from their sexuality, or they use it as a kind of a pleasure-seeking drug. You know, and it doesn't seem like that's what its original intent was. I mean, besides procreation, we have such a sophisticated physiology connected to our sexual pleasures, and so how do you make the connection between, you know, sexual pleasure and play and spiritual evolution?
That's a great question. Often I've explored the topic of orgasm and why people seek out the orgasmic experience, and whether they're sexually educated or not, everybody wants to have an orgasm. So why is this?
Well, a lot of people like to have orgasms for an escape, as a drug, as a way of like letting go of their everyday personal life.
But I do think a part of them unconsciously understands that when they experience orgasm, that's when they're purely in the now. Pure now time. You can't have an orgasm in the past or future. It can only happen right now. And when it happens right now, your whole being, physical, emotional, spiritual, mental, is inundated with bliss. And I believe bliss to be our natural birthright. So I think that's the unconscious motivation behind seeking orgasm, which to me is exciting because you can tap into that to grow consciously.
No, I think that's a really good point. The fact that that moment of orgasm, they would call the little death, where you would connect with God consciousness. Your totality would come into alignment, and you have a samadhi experience.
Exactly.
So then, is it possible then to use that as a kind of practice in a way, where you can work on the spiritual development?
Definitely.
In what way?
Well, through the training that I've received, we use the orgasmic energy to generate a heart connection, first of all. So the heart in the Tao is known as the seat of our consciousness. So to activate the heart and combine it with the sexual energy, and then bringing that up to the master glands, the pineal and pituitary glands, and working with this type of exercise or qigong definitely allows you to access greater parts of who you are. And one of the ways I recently experienced this was through a dark room retreat.
You want to tell us about the dark room retreat?
I can talk a little bit about it. In the dark, you tend to, serotonin is not produced unless there's light. So your melatonin levels get raised. And when the melatonin levels go a certain level and bypass serotonin, then you produce your spiritual hormones.
What do you mean by spiritual hormones?
There are hormones that you don't normally have on a regular basis. They can't be created because the melatonin levels never get high enough. But when the opportunity is there, you have access to these clairvoyance, clairsentience, clairaudience, so you become more of what you really are.
So you start to tap into higher levels of consciousness.
Yes,
Now, how do you
absolutely.
connect that to your
The sexual energy. Well, in the dark room, we would do advanced sexual practices called the Kundalini, water and fire. And these are self-intercourse practices where you arouse the sexual energy through some breathing patterns, open the heart, love, and you combine the two, the fire and the water, and it literally will feel internally like you're making love, although externally you're just sitting and breathing. And then this high vibration will start to raise your cellular vibration, and you enable yourself to pull in ultraviolet light or other lights and start accessing these different forms of information.
So how did you feel when that? I mean, I know you felt energized, but what was the result of that? And what?
Many results. The main one was bliss. I was in ecstasy all the time. But through that, I was able to access a lot of information about questions that I had that perhaps I would have needed a master or someone fairly advanced to answer for me, and I was getting direct.
How you hold that sexual energy and you pull it up the spine, so it starts to activate other centers in the brain, and sometimes my eyes get very bright and clear, and it's like I feel the chi has been moved up, and then the idea is to circulate it around the body, and then with a partner to circulate it around each other. You know, but I don't always remember to do that. How can I remind myself, like, you know, that's the thing to go for?
Well, the practice you just described is the microcosmic orbit, and that is a foundational base practice. Whether or not you choose to follow the path of enlightenment through using your sexual energy, I recommend everybody, whether it's a corporate setting or my sexual classes, to do the microcosmic orbit. It balances the body, and it does blend the raw physical energy into higher brain energy and brings them together, which is a very vital practice for people.
I think, you know, that's a good way to start out, in a way of initiating a kind of cultivation of sexual energy, and sort of just going above pure pleasure seeking, you know. And then to understand what I think is so valuable in your work is the complexity of especially female sexuality. You know, you were talking when I heard you lecture on the 3 types of fluids. So can you just talk about how, you know, most men aren't really aware of how complex a woman is, unless they have to deal with them emotionally. But physiologically, women are very complex. So can you just talk about the totality of that? I mean,
in the Tao practice, women are yin, which means water, and water comes in many forms. It can be mist, it can be rain, it can be snow, it can be ice. And fire is fire. There's flames, and that's pretty much fire. And that's the yang energy. So speaking of water, in essence, the female genitals, when aroused, becomes very wet, and there's all kinds of waters, and they're all seen as sacred and like elixirs. So mostly what happens when women don't experience this is sexual activity tends to be not enough time is given to a woman to really honor her body and take time to really activate her and be with her So a lot of times, I think intercourse is now, but between 2 to 10 minutes maximum in length.
2 to 10 minutes.
Yeah, still as an average.
And that hardly gets a woman started, right?
No, especially if there was no foreplay or anything like that.
In addition,
Yeah.
What is this for?
So the Jade egg is part of the Jade Goddess practice and also the Tao practice. And there's multiple levels of why we would use one. On a pure physical level, pelvic muscular health is enhanced using the Jade eggs because you're constantly working out.
So you put this inside
the vagina.
And then what would you do with it?
You practice sucking it in first, getting the muscles to learn to do that. And then you move it up and down. You can learn to flip it around.
In your vagina,
Yeah.
you can do all that.
Yes.
That's incredible.
And you learn to squeeze above and below and the egg itself. In very advanced practices, you lift weights with it.
You lift weights.
So you attach a weight at the bottom.
At the end, and hanging out on the bottom. And then you pull it up.
Yeah.
Wow. And then,
So that's the physical side of it. Then there's the emotional part of it where the reflexology of the vagina affects the whole body.
you mean there's points on the vagina?
Yeah, within the vagina.
That connect to the whole body.
That's correct.
And I'm sure on the penis as well.
That's correct.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So with the egg, then you'd stimulate certain points in the vagina that would also have a reflex in the body.
Exactly. So you work directly with the organs, and the Taoists believe that our emotions originate from our organs.
Right.
So that's how we do emotional healing work, utilizing the power of our sexual energy.
But also the jade egg is the penis is then able to have all the thrills of a jade egg practitioner, right?
Yes.
You'd be able to
On a physical level, a woman's better able to pleasure her partner and pleasure herself.
Right.
Because the more she can have dexterity and suppleness and strength in her vagina, the more she can experience greater pleasure for herself and her partner.
And so then what do you recommend for men to kind of, as a parallel
exercise?
Sort of, I guess, contracting the knee and then lifting weights.
Yeah, there's a whole other male practice.
Yeah.
So first we do very gross level practices, meaning physical and pulling up and down and movement, and then we get more and more subtle, so more on the spiritual end of things, the esoteric side, is we learn to feel the actual sexual chi. So we tap into the ovarian chi, we tap into the aroused chi, and women can actually experience orgasm simply by visualizing the chi spiraling in their vagina, and they'll start to have an orgasm. So that's a level of orgasm that most people don't know they have or could tune into.
Well, couldn't you then just tap into someone you've met and kind of tap into their sexual energy and start to experience it that way through that through the vagina and through what they call the chakra down in the uterus?
Can I experience them or can they experience
No, can you experience other people?
I'm very sensitive, yes, so I can definitely feel other people's energy movement in their body. I've worked with couples and with individuals where I never touch them, it's clothes on, but energy can be generated because I can direct it from a distance.
You project your sexual energy, would you say?
Yeah, life force energy, sexual energy, life force energy. And I allow, I call it juiciness or succulent energy to come through and just simply activate the individual. So,
and then they're able to take that energy and work with it.
It's really their own energy. So if you understand how vibration works, if you have something vibrating very quickly next to something that's slow, the slow one's going to start to pick up. Like boiling water, for instance. It starts to vibrate faster and faster and faster. So that's what happens when, if I come near you and my chakras are vibrating very high and I actually send that frequency to you, your energy system is going to go up. So your energy will start to vibrate at that level, and you'll experience that. So it's not me and it's not you. As a recipient, as a woman, why do I enjoy being with men who know how to have non-ejaculatory orgasms and who are aware of their energy systems and their bodies? So the connection is really great when you have both partners practicing. So through the Taoist practices of the orbit and the inner smile and these different ways of opening the body, the sexual organs aren't the only thing that's going to contain the energy anymore. So the whole body becomes a container for this life force. And every cell then becomes a part of it, which for me defines more what omni-orgasm is.
Yeah, what's omni-orgasm?
Well, probably some people have heard of multi-orgasm. And multi-orgasm just means many. And usually in a sexual setting means one after another. Omni-orgasm basically just means all orgasmic or all orgasm.
Like all the time. You're always orgasmic.
All meaning all the time, but also meaning more, it's not related to just my genitals. It's not related just to male-female interaction or human interaction. So I start to receive bliss and pleasure through just the act of being alive.
And do you?
Yes, I absolutely do.
And yeah, orgasm has a whole span of possibilities.
Exactly.
Right? Everyone thinks it's just this wild explosion of birth.
The Big Bang Theory.
Yeah. But it's everything in between that, like from feeling subtle bliss to
fully expanded hour-longs. Yeah.
But the goal of sex actually isn't orgasm. In the Tantric and the Taoist traditions, that's not the goal.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a nice side benefit.
It's a process-oriented experience rather than a goal-oriented experience.
And that's the kind of sexuality you're teaching and developing.
That's correct, yes.
We're not going anywhere. We're being in the moment together.
Yes.
I think that's very important. Because
being with ourselves, being with other individuals, being with nature. If you watch nature very carefully, especially now it's springtime, and you see the vibration of life in the trees and the squirrels and pigeons, everything's getting sexy, everything's preparing for this procreative time. So when you attune yourself to nature, you as well can receive this energy.
But somehow we've so disconnected from that potential. So if we see something beautiful, we say, oh, isn't that nice? And we don't really feel it. It's a visual stimulation, but then how do we bring that into our physiology?
Right. Well, there's a couple things there. One, I think, is people are afraid to really feel. The emotional world is one of the places where we're not really mature as adult species. We're mature physically, mentally, even spiritually, we're encouraged to mature, but not necessarily emotionally.
Well, what does that mean, emotional maturity?
It's an understanding and being at home with yourself that yes, I do experience anger, and yes, I do experience kindness, and working with, instead of becoming the emotion, feeling it like it's an energy passing through you or a signpost on your road on the way to where you're going.
So you're the observer of now I'm feeling anger. So instead of activating it or engaging it, you just observe it.
Well, it's both. You're in it and you're observing it. So you're not experiencing it. You allow yourself to be totally in it, but at the same time you understand that that's not who you are. It's very interesting when you do this practice. You start to expand your potential of what it means to be sexual, and you no longer become dependent on another person or a specific type of event, meaning intercourse or stimulation. And you start to realize you can access orgasmic energy or bliss energy through just simply breathing and smiling. And that's what I mean by a greater potential or expanding who we are as beings. So in the East, the solo practice is often very much emphasized. So to really
The Taoist practice of Matha Chia, the idea is to bring the sexual energy up the spine and expand the brain to stimulate the pineal and pituitary system.
Yes, and the other side of that is you also bring it down the front. And when you bring it down the front, it opens your throat, which allows you to speak your truth. It opens the heart, creating more compassion. It opens the solar plexus, which allows you to just be in the world, very comfortable to be in the world. It keeps opening the front, open the front. And the front is known as the yin, or the feminine channel. And most of us are very comfortable in our masculine expression of doing and going and being in linear thought. But our feminine, the softness, the more receptive side, we don't often cultivate. So this practice very much balances your own internal yin and yang, male and female energies.
You know, in the Taoist practices, they say the man should retain and pull it up the spine. Do you think that's always the case? I mean, I feel depleted if I ejaculate.
Right. Again, it's sexual energy management. So some Taoists are very strict, they never ejaculate. And other Taoists feel like a good spring cleaning is okay, and so they'll do it a few times a year, mostly in the spring. I believe in exchange. So if you have a partnership that's going to a high level, and the woman is often gifting her fluids to the male, then I believe that the male can occasionally gift her.
But women aren't treated in the same way that men are, right?
They're not, but I think it's okay once in a while in that kind of a way. Especially if you do practices, really what you're doing is drawing the chi from the sperm into your body. So if you're releasing the sperm and you've already drawn all the energy out of it, it's not as damaging as not doing any practice and ejaculating.
Is there a way then to rebuild the chi in men if they happen to ejaculate? Which way is that?
Oh, well, there's many qigongs, it's hard to get into it this time, and diet and
and there are aphrodisiacs that will do that as well.
Yes.
And I find like seafood is an aphrodisiac. No, it's true. Oysters and shrimp.
Olives.
Because they produce a deeper heat in the lower down skin and they help build the kidneys. Now, for women, though, having orgasms isn't depleting. It's very energizing, is what you talked about.
Some ladies it is depleting, so it depends as well on the individual. Women usually lose their energy through menstruation. So they learn through practices how to tap into the ovarian chi and pull that energy into their body and rejuvenate them. The older ladies that I know that do this practice look very young. They haven't gone through the traditional sense of menopause. They're still juicy. They're still.
Could they then start to then menstruate if they wanted to?
Master Chia has known women who've done practice that have brought their menstruation back even up to 65 years of age.
And would they be able to conceive a child?
Yes.
They would.
Yeah.
Because they've held on to the chi.
Well, even if you stop menstruating, it doesn't mean that the eggs are gone. Yeah, it's just the hormones have changed.
Well, people say that women really deplete their energy through childbirth. They lose a lot of chi that way. Is that your understanding as well?
Yeah, all the best energies go to the child. So the more children you're pregnant with, the more you're draining your own body, because it all goes, the fetus gets the creme of everything.
Well, that's why when I talked to Mata Chia, he told me he was building an immortal child out of his own essence. Is that something you're practicing as well?
Absolutely.
Can you tell me?
Yeah, it had to do with the last session we talked about the Kan and Li practices. And these are the self-intercourse practices, they're inner alchemy practices. And within that, you do create this immortal child or immortal fetus. And it comes from the union, the male and female energies in your body make love, and from that union, there's an energetic child or fetus that's formed, and then you develop and grow it through your loving attention, through your meditation.
Do you feel the fetus? I mean, have you developed that yet?
If you can, I can. The thing that happens though when you're an early practitioner, if you don't continue to practice, it just dissolves, and then you have to go and recreate this experience. As you get more advanced, it stays.
And then when you give birth to the immortal child, it's sort of a spring of enlightenment.
It gives birth eventually to your spirit body, and the Taoists believe that you can become immortal through, at the time of death, taking your conscious self, putting it in the spirit body, and then you consciously keep existing.
And I think that's possible.